regarding the Air Canada strike, this is certainly something significant. Essentially, what happened was the time came for Air Canada flight attendants, workers, which we should say is a very gendered profession. So that's one very important element of this, this labor struggle, is that it is gendered. It's not that 100% of flight attendants are women, but it is disproportionate. And starting out, flight attendants were 100% women, and that has essentially changed. But essentially, it was time to renegotiate the contract between Air Canada flight attendants, Air Canada workers, as part of the Canadian Union of Public Employees, CUPE, CUPE. And these negotiations had been going on for about 9 months to no avail, which is when Air Canada workers declared their intention to strike. And the central issues here were low pay, but especially flight attendants, and this is an industry norm, so-called, in North America. Flight attendants apparently don't get paid unless and until the plane starts to move or it's in the air. So, and you can see from the point of view of the employer, from Air Canada, this is because there's a lot of unpredictability. There might be delays, issues with boarding, etc. So they don't want to end up paying their employees for all of that time. So that was a central demand in this Air Canada strike, to receive ground pay, to be paid essentially for the work that they do on the ground.
Wow. I can't believe that's real.
Yeah.
I can't believe that's real. Sorry, I was flabbergasted because I was trying to process that. Wait, so they don't get paid on the ground. They only get paid when they take off or when they're in the air?
That's right. And so essentially, the strike took place. They were going to, that was one of the central demands, to have ground pay. They were on strike for a while, and it took less than 24 hours since the beginning of the strike for the Canadian government to refer this to something called, not to get too nitty-gritty here, but something called the Canada Industrial Relations Board, which is sort of a softer, quieter way to essentially regulate these workers back to work. And that's exactly what the CIRB did, in effect. What's notable about this strike is that the workers striking, they defied this back to work order. And that, from the mouth of the CEO of Air Canada, surprised him. And not long after that, Air Canada came back to the table to renegotiate a deal. The details of this deal haven't been made public, but it seems that there are provisions for on or ground pay, we should say. And however, from sort of early reports, this is not entirely confirmed, that ground pay is still only about 50% of the standard hourly rate of when flight attendants are paid for when they're moving or in the air. And reports suggest that many flight attendants, unionized flight attendants, are still unsatisfied with this. This tentative agreement will have to be ratified, I think, by the end of the month, beginning of September, where it'll be put to a vote to CUPE members, and then we'll see what happens from then on. But this is significant in several ways, because in the first instance, this is the first time. It's not the first time that a right to work order has been defied, but I believe it is the first time that a right to work order has been defied, and that has pressured the employer to come back to the table with a better deal. And so that sets a precedent, actually, for essentially making this right to work order sort of ineffective. If these workers essentially disregarded it, continued to strike, and then won anyway. The second way this is significant is because now, if Air Canada is giving this concession of now starting to pay ground pay, the rest of the industry will have to follow, essentially.
Right. Yeah. And I think what the workers are striking for is very, very important and essential. And I so appreciate you for diving deep into it, because I think there's a possibility that a lot of people don't know about these things, right? I often think about how Obviously, the US takes the spotlight with all its mess and its chaos, but at the same time, there are these settler colonies as well that are having so much public discontent and so much public unrest because of the unfair working conditions or the following of US policy.